Welcome back to Cross-Strait Chronicles. We turn complex cross-strait history into stories you can actually enjoy. Grab a seat, relax, and let's travel back in time across the strait. Today's episode is about how a trade disagreement turned into a full-blown war, how tea led to opium, how misunderstandings became cannon fire, and how one war permanently changed China's relationship with the world. And yes, it all started with people wanting stuff and not wanting to pay for it. Last time, we talked about a Qing Empire that looked powerful. Huge population, long history, confident worldview. China saw itself as the center of civilization. Foreigners weren't equals, they were visitors. Trade wasn't negotiation, it was a favor. Meanwhile, Europe was industrializing, globalizing, and very impatient. So when these two worlds finally collided, things went badly, very badly.
Okay, now what? Qing China, after defeat. So the war was over. The Treaty of Nanjing was signed. The cannons went silent. The British ships stayed. And suddenly, the Qing government faced a terrifying question. What do we do now? The empire still existed. The emperor still ruled. The bureaucracy still functioned. But psychologically, China had just woken up in a new world, one where tradition no longer guaranteed safety, and nobody had given them an instruction manual. Foreigners are no longer just visitors. Before the Opium War, foreigners in China were temporary guests. After the war, they became permanent residents. Treaty ports opened. Canton, Shanghai, Xiamen, Ningbo, Fuzhou foreign merchants now lived inside China under their own laws. This concept was called extraterritoriality, meaning if a foreigner commits a crime in China, China can't punish them. You can imagine how popular that was. A new kind of humiliation. This wasn't humiliation in the dramatic battlefield sense. This was daily humiliation. Foreign flags flying in Chinese cities. Foreign courts overriding Chinese law. Foreign gunboats parked nearby, just in case. For ordinary people, it felt like, we are still Chinese, but we are no longer fully in control of our own land. That feeling matters a lot, because this is where modern Chinese nationalism begins to quietly form. The Qing response: denial, confusion, and delay. So how did the Qing government respond? Short answer, very slowly. Some officials said, this was a one-time problem. Let's just be more careful. Others said, the foreigners are dangerous. We should keep them out completely. A very small group said, maybe we should learn from them. Guess which group was ignored? Technology versus institutions. Here's the core problem. The Qing eventually realized they needed modern weapons, modern ships, modern industries, so they started importing them. Cannons, imported. Ships, imported. Machines, imported. But institutions, still traditional. The empire tried to modernize tools without modernizing systems. It's like installing the latest software on a computer from 1790. It doesn't end well. Foreign powers. Smell. Opportunity. Britain wasn't alone for long. France, Russia, the United States, and others watched carefully. They all wanted what Britain got. More ports, more privileges, more influence. China wasn't dealing with one foreign power anymore. It was dealing with many. and the Qing court was completely overwhelmed. The Second Opium War, because things can always get worse. If the First Opium War was shocking, the Second Opium War was humiliating. Foreign troops marched on Beijing. The old summer palace was looted and burned. This wasn't just military defeat. It was cultural trauma. A message was being sent. We can reach the heart of your civilization. That message was received loud and clear. Ordinary people pay the price. While diplomats argued and officials debated, ordinary people suffered. Higher taxes, economic disruption, foreign domination of trade. For many peasants, the Qing government no longer looks strong. And that loss of confidence is deadly for dynasties. From trade war to identity crisis. By the mid-19th century, China wasn't just facing military pressure, it was facing an identity crisis. Questions people started asking: what does it mean to be Chinese now? Is tradition enough? Can we modernize without becoming Western? These questions had no easy answers, and they would define the next century of Chinese history. Why this still matters today. You might be thinking, okay, but this happened 180 years ago. True, but the memory of the Opium Wars still shapes Chinese attitudes toward sovereignty, suspicion of foreign interference, sensitivity around trade, territory, and power, including, yes, cross-strait relations. History doesn't disappear. It echoes. The long shadow of the Opium War, the Qing dynasty didn't collapse immediately. But after the Opium War, it was never the same. Every rebellion, every reform attempt, every revolution. They all trace part of their roots back to this moment, when China realized the world is bigger, faster, and harsher than we thought. The Opium War wasn't just about opium. It was about power, misunderstanding, and a world that changed faster than an empire could adapt. When the cannon stopped, China was still standing, but it was no longer the same China, and from that moment on, history didn't slow down. It accelerated. Do you think China could have modernized without experiencing the trauma of the Opium Wars? Or was shock the only way change could happen? Put your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. If this video helped make Cross-Strait history a little less confusing, consider giving it a like and subscribing. History is complicated, but learning it doesn't have to be. Next episode, Unequal Treaties. Why Qing China lost control of its own future. I'll see you in the next episode.